Hello, and welcome to Anime Audio Commentary. Today I'll be commenting on Episode 4 of My Dress Up Darling Season 2. If you'd like to watch along, then start watching now. So last we left off, Gojo and Marin were dealing with that Amane character, and they've sort of, learned a bit about the guy, and especially his history with cosplaying and the trouble that it's caused, and at the very least, I was given to understand that Gojo's sort of, feeling a little bit better about himself, considering that he's had similar problems in the past, albeit not to the same extent. Now, back in the present, it seems as though there's going to be a cultural festival, as is frequently the case, and they're, deciding what to do as a class. So, it seems like the whole thing is kind of gamified. You accrue points and you lose them if you're still here when school ends. So it seems like the idea is that you have to get work done during school hours. And, you'd have to follow the rules to a degree, otherwise you lose points. So I guess the question is, what are they going to decide to do? Because, clearly the idea here is to get everyone to compete with the other classes. But I don't know. I don't get the idea that everyone's going to be competing on an even playing field. Especially if everyone chooses something different, Oh, okay. So they've also got a beauty pageant going on. Like, the side characters are saying it right as I'm thinking it. Like, obviously, they're going to enter Marin into the pageant, and naturally they will win. They've got an ace up their sleeve, so to speak. Oh. Okay. That's an interesting wrinkle. If Marin's going to enter, she's going to have to dress as a boy. Okay, so... She's, I guess she's putting her own twist on it, she's treating this as an opportunity to cosplay, and therefore, go wild, right? I guess it's mainly a question of which character will she pick, because naturally, I'm sure there are going to be so many options. Ooh, okay. So naturally, she's picked a very, sort of Bishonen character. I guess that's going to be popular with everyone. I guess more to the point, it seems like everyone knows what she's talking about, which... she made a good choice, it sounds like, but, just thinking about this, it's kind of, foreign to me, Because, this is I don't know, someone suggesting something that's culturally popular here in the US, which, anime generally isn't. I don't know, I guess I'm struggling to think of what would be a good analog to this sort of thing, but I guess it doesn't matter too much. The point here is that Marin has latched onto a good idea that everyone is more or less in agreement with. And really, it seems as though, everyone kind of watches this show. Even, the quote-unquote tough guy who just watches it because his little sister likes it. Wow. So I guess the question now is that, naturally, Marin is the center of attention as the cosplayer and all that. But what I'm wondering is, how much credit is going to be given to Gojo here? Because naturally, for as good as Marin is at cosplaying, Gojo's sort of like the powerhouse behind that. Without his help, she couldn't do it nearly as well. So, I guess, I don't think it's a matter of Marin willingly sharing credit. She would naturally want to do that. As indeed she's doing it right now, she's calling attention to him. But I guess the question is, how will the rest of the class react? Because, it seems like nobody really knows and or cares about him, or really interacts with him. Ooh, okay. So the title of this episode has taken on new meaning. And I'm just kind of calling balls and strikes here as I see them. But with this sudden attention being placed on Gojo and the idea that he has all of Marin's measurements memorized, I feel like this might engender some jealousy. Or envy, rather. Okay, alright, we're doing something nifty again where we're checking out the source material that Marin cares about. And I guess this is the quote-unquote bento scene that everybody said was a real tearjerker. So I guess, naturally the heroine goes out of her way to give her lunch to the hero. Or her love interest, rather, and, rather than sticking around, she just runs off because she's in a hurry. So I guess, from the love interest's perspective, that's probably just going to be the best food he's ever eaten, doubly so because it was homemade. Alright, well, I guess maybe we're not following up on that bento scene, we're checking out the other characters and, all that. So I guess maybe this is cause for jealousy among the heroine and her friend here. Seeing the student council president and how great she is at everything and all that. I guess, it is kind of natural to feel jealous to a degree, but at the same time, I don't know, comparison's the thief of joy and all that. You can't really compare yourself to other people if you want to be happy with how you are. And maybe to some degree you shouldn't be happy with how you are. You should want to improve, but, only in comparison to yourself. Now, I kind of wish we had a little bit more context for this episode. I suppose, oh, this is interesting. For the main character to be sort of called in to see the student council president, I feel like it pertains to that kindness with the bento box rather than, any sort of trouble she might be in. I guess we don't really know. Oh, okay, that's a real twist. I guess, the sort of, standout physiology kinda was a bit of a giveaway. Oh, wait a minute. Okay. Yeah, alright. Well, that's a bigger twist than I guess naturally assumed it was. Alright, well. I guess I can see why this sort of, like, secret identity thing is the kind of thing Marin likes. So I guess, in a way, this is like a natural sort of thing for her to cosplay. Alright, well, back to reality, I guess. I can't help but think about Gojo and how this might be the start of something for him. Just because, like, he's never really been in the public eye, quote-unquote, to the degree he's likely to be helping out Marin. And I can't help but wonder if there's going to be some envy here among the students for Gojo. Just because, like, everyone naturally decided that Marin would be the candidate for the beauty pageant. And, they just sort of assumed that was that. But unbeknownst to them, Marin decided that Gojo's going to be the guy helping her out. And I feel like, no one really knew that was part of the bargain. Even though, like, for us, the viewer, it's only natural that that should be the case. And just judging based on how the previous few episodes in the previous season were, I don't think anyone's going to make, like, a real issue of it. Like, there's not going to be any, like, I don't want to say no conflict, but, like, I feel like no one's going to be real aggressive or confrontational about things, but, well, yeah, no, probably not. I feel like someone might be, like, kind of borderline, and really the bigger conflict is going to be Gojo and just overcoming his own insecurities, because, like, I feel like he has been making progress towards that end, namely dealing with other people who have, hobbies that aren't necessarily approved of. But I feel like the big thing here is that other people are going to appreciate him for his talents now, which it's essentially the polar opposite of what he had been used to previously. So, now that Gojo has become familiar with the source material, I feel like it's just a matter of, probably tailoring a suit. If Marin's dressing up as the character in, costume as a host, I feel like really the only way to go about doing things is to buy a suit and tailor it. And, that could get, pretty expensive pretty quickly. I mean, maybe you could get around it, because, like, the character's wearing a white suit, and I was generally of the impression that, like, suits other than, like, black, gray, or blue, like, have a tendency to be kind of, like, cheap and inexpensive, unless they're really expensive. So, maybe they could get their hands on, like, a reasonable suit and just, like, tailor it to suit Marin. Okay, well, I guess given that Gojo's already drafted up a little design for a 3-piece suit, he's probably just going to make the thing from scratch, which, he's already done quite a few impressive things clothing-wise, but I feel like a suit, like, that's gotta be something, I mean, I say this as someone with no real talent for sewing or tailoring or anything like that. Alright. So already they're sort of like thinking about the potential issues here. Marin's concerned about the character being tall, whereas she isn't particularly tall, so she'll have to wear lifts or something, or platform shoes. Ooh. There's mention of, like, elegant fabric here. I'm wondering if Gojo's gonna splurge here on, like, really, really nice material. Because I feel like if this is for a school festival, like, they probably got a budget, you know? Like, or at the very least, they're certainly not to exceed a certain budget or amount. Oh, wow. Okay, so Gojo's done some, like, actual research into this, you know, assuming that the way the suits are isn't just a stylistic choice in the source material, it's, you know, like an actual tailoring thing. And I guess, you know, there is a bit of an issue here in regards to Marin's figure, because it's sort of not conducive to tailoring a suit that way. It's, you know, more of a casual thing than a business thing. Alright, so we're dropping the title. You know, Marin's a little bit embarrassed that Gojo has her measurements memorized. But, like, I feel like at a point, you know, Gojo can't help but memorize these things if he's tailoring so many things for you. I mean, I remember in the first season how awkward it was just, you know, acquiring the measurements in the first place. I feel like Gojo would be loath to, you know, measure things again. Like, he'd probably be less embarrassed about it now than he was previously. But, oh dear. So Gojo's dropping a bit of a bomb here. He has less time for this cosplay than he had for Shizuka-tan, which was the first thing he did for Marin, and famously, he really ran himself through the ringer to get the cosplay done in a timely manner. And it turned out, you know, he didn't really have a strict deadline that he thought he had, but he still ran himself ragged, I believe, in the lead up to midterm exams. And, you know, that was sort of like a big deal because he was definitely suffering from the exertion, and Marin was highly apologetic about it, but, you know, it was one of those sort of all's well that ends well kind of things. Like, everything turned out fine, but, you know, Gojo hasn't exactly exerted himself to the same excessive degree as that time since. So, now that he has a short deadline, like, things might get a bit hectic. You know, Marin's taking some of the duties upon herself, you know, gathering materials, doing some minor things like that. Alright. Man. It seems like Gojo's taking on a bit too much responsibility for himself, being responsible for a whole lot of things, to the point where he's resolving to miss the first day of the festival just so that everything's prepared for the beauty pageant on the second day. And on the one hand, I certainly do respect him. You know, this is a valiant effort. He's putting in a lot of, you know, time and effort, or certainly he will be doing so, but, like, I feel like you can leave some things to other people. Now, this is interesting. You know, he's coming to help out with interior design, and everybody's kind of standoffish with him, at least initially, but it's more like, you know, hey, don't you have to do beauty pageant stuff? And I guess, okay, this is the good outcome, because, like, really, it seemed like everyone was just kind of staring him down, like, what the hell are you doing here? You don't belong here. But I guess somehow we have the opposite problem. You know, everyone is sort of marveling at his superhuman dedication, and that, like, look, dude, you're trying to do too much. Wow. Alright, so it's interesting, I guess, that it's gone a little far in the other direction, and that people are sort of chastising him for trying to do too much. I mean, I guess fair enough, you know, he's not going to be good to anyone if he's worn himself out, but... Huh. I mean, I guess I understand it, like, some of the other students should certainly pull as much weight as Gojo is. He doesn't have to help with interior design and a bunch of other stuff, too. So I guess it is nice in a way, because it seems as though no one really acknowledged Gojo prior to this, but they certainly do seem to recognize that he's the only one who can do the part that he's been drafted for. No one else can help Marin with her costume, therefore, it's all on him. Although, unfortunately, he seems to have made a mistake by, putting Marin in charge of materials, and everyone else seems to realize that perhaps this was a financially ruinous decision. Oh dear. So I guess, regardless of all the other responsibilities he's shedding, Gojo's still going to be responsible for wrangling Marin and staying on budget. I like how this is treated as a real emergency where it's like, oh boy, like he has to go hurry and stop her before she buys too much. I mean, fair enough, but I feel like he also does just want to spend time with her, right? Like, you might as well if you're going to be cosplaying and all that. So I guess it is nice that by the time they go to the fabric store, like, they already have, like, a good idea of what they want, like, a plain fabric with no pattern and a slightly glossy finish. It's probably a good thing to have thought all this stuff out, Although that said, like, some of this fabric's going to be pretty expensive, as fabric tends to be. Especially if you're going for, like, specialty stuff. So I guess now that they have the fabric, all that's left is for Gojo to make and tailor the thing. Alright, well that's it for this episode. If you've enjoyed it, then by all means, tune in for the next one. See you, Space Cowboy.